What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Crank This, the show where we spotlight tracks from the AI metal community and give them the attention they deserve. Tonight, we're diving into something absolutely filthy. This is Carcinochrist, title track. And right away, if you're into brutal death metal, slam, or those disgusting low-end guitar tones that feel like they're dragging you face first through concrete, this track knows exactly what it wants to be. This is not polished radio metal. This is not trying to be accessible. This is oppressive, grimy, violent slam metal that leans hard into atmosphere and weight. And honestly, respect for committing fully to the style. So metalheads, let's check it out.
He comes.
Still he demands more and more. Every ribcage forced apart, every beating heart the start. Stacks of bodies left to rot, all consumed within the plot. Feeding frenzy never still, grinding flesh beneath his will. More.
The first thing that hit me here was the guitar tone. The guitars are absolutely caveman heavy in the best possible way. You've got that down-tuned, sludge-soaked slam tone where every chug feels oversized and ugly on purpose. And that's important in this genre. A lot of newer slam or death metal tracks fall into the trap of trying to sound too clean or too modern. This track doesn't do that. Instead, it embraces that suffocating wall of sound. The riffs feel dense, the low end has weight, and the palm-muted sections land with impact instead of sounding thin. There's also a really solid sense of groove underneath the brutality. This isn't random noise. The track actually locks into rhythmic patterns that give the listener something to latch onto, while still keeping that chaotic energy alive. Let's talk specifically about the guitars for a second, because that's where this track really shines for me. The riff construction feels very much rooted in classic slam and brutal death metal traditions. You've got those dragging groove sections mixed with faster bursts and transitions that keep the song moving. What I liked is that the guitars don't just sit in one speed the entire time. The track shifts between slower, crushing slam sections, more aggressive, tremolo-driven moments, groove-focused breakdown-style riffs, and those ugly stop-start hits that are designed to punch the listener in the chest. The tone itself has that nasty, oversaturated edge without completely losing definition. And that balance matters. In extreme metal, if the guitars become too muddy, the riffs disappear. But here, you can still feel the movement of the riff patterns underneath the chaos. There's also a strong rhythmic relationship between the drums and guitars. The guitars aren't fighting the percussion. They're locking together to create that crushing momentum the genre needs. And honestly, some of those groove sections would absolutely destroy live. You can already imagine the pit movement during certain parts of this track. Now, lyrically and vocally, this sits firmly inside the brutal death/slam aesthetic. The vocals are deep, hostile, and deliberately inhuman sounding. They function more like another instrument inside the mix rather than a traditional lead vocal. And in this style of metal, that's exactly what you want. The vocal delivery adds texture and aggression rather than trying to be melodic. Lyrically, the track leans heavily into dark imagery, decay, violence, corruption, and grotesque thematic presentation. It creates that oppressive horror atmosphere that slam metal thrives on. And the important thing is that the lyrical tone matches the instrumentation. Nothing feels disconnected. Everything is working toward the same ugly, crushing atmosphere. This feels like a band that understands the genre they're writing in. Another thing worth mentioning is the production approach. This track understands that extreme metal sometimes benefits from controlled ugliness. Not everything has to sound hyperclinical. Not everything has to be perfectly polished. The slightly raw, dense production actually helps the atmosphere here. It gives the song weight and grime. And honestly, for slam and brutal death metal, atmosphere matters just as much as technicality. This track feels hostile. It feels claustrophobic, and that's a compliment. The pacing also helps. The song doesn't rush through ideas too quickly. It gives riffs time to breathe and hit. That's another thing younger writers sometimes miss in extreme genres. If you move too fast between riffs, none of them land. Here, the track lets those heavy moments settle before shifting gears. Overall, this is a seriously solid slam/death metal piece. If you're into brutal death metal, down-tuned groove, oppressive atmosphere, and crushing guitar work, there's a lot here to enjoy. The guitars absolutely carry the experience. The groove is strong, the production suits the style, and the track commits fully to the aesthetic it's aiming for. Most importantly, it sounds authentic to the genre. It doesn't feel watered down. It doesn't feel trend-chasing. It feels like it was made by somebody who genuinely understands brutal, extreme metal. So, massive respect to Swisher Price and Carcinochrist for throwing this one into the community. If you enjoyed the track, make sure you go support the creator, drop feedback, and show some love. The link to their channel is in the description below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Digital Forge. It helps the channel grow and allows for more creators to get exposure to the community. So, thank you for watching. I am Kyla. This is Crank This from the Digital Forge. Be safe, and I will see you all on the next one. Now go ahead and crank this.